Welcome to the Table Rush Talk Show. I'm your host, Mischa Zvagintsev. Today we have a fascinating conversation with John Rarrick, the head of marketing at Movius. John shares his insights into how Movius is revolutionizing the telecom industry with their innovative solutions, including their groundbreaking work in digital sustainability and crisis management. If you're curious about how cutting-edge technology can transform industries like finance, healthcare, and logistics, you won't want to miss this episode. Let's dive into the conversation with John Rarrick. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Mischa.
I want to dive into what you do over there at Mobius, but right before we got started here, you said, hey, you know what? I'm barely in the office. You're based out of Philadelphia, but you're never in the same office or slash country or something for more than a couple days. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely on the move quite often. That's the challenge of a scrappy global software company. You need to stay in motion constantly. It's sort of like zone basketball. You need to always be moving.
Well, tell me. So, what are you doing out there? Give me a vision of your day, week, and or month.
Yeah. So a lot of what we do, and I'll give you the primer, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the company. But a lot of what we do is working through other reseller partners. So those are typically come in the form of tier one wireless carriers, where we become a solutions provider. And, at Mobius, we only work with the best carrier in every country we do business with for obvious reasons. We want to deliver the best product with the best clarity and the best customer service. So to do that means you're going to be interfacing with a lot of different carriers in a lot of different countries, and you need to stay on the move because the needs of there's similarities in the needs of all those different cultures. They also have their own very individual dynamics, and you need to make sure your marketing messages are on point with their customers around the globe. So you're talking to their customers on their terms.
Mm. Maybe tell us what Mobius is doing, and then we can dive into maybe more of the nitty gritty of the conversations you're having with the carriers, and then the resellers. I'm supposing is who you've got your reseller channels, and then your what I saw you're very busy with the financial services industry. So you've got what do we call that channel? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's you nailed it. It's the financial services industry is a big part of our business, but I'll tell you about Mobius because it takes a little explaining, but I think by now I've honed it down pretty well to a solid 10-floor elevator pitch. We really consider ourselves to be the Uber of telecom. And by that, I mean, let me tell you where we sort of sit in the ecosystem in that industry. Everyone remembers what we would call phone 1.0. That's the Alexander Graham Bell. It sat on your grandmother's kitchen wall with the rotary dial and the long cord, so you could get some privacy in the hall closet if you had to. And really, that didn't change much for 100 years, right? And then boom, along comes phone 2.0, which was wireless technology, essentially a SIM connecting to a tower. And when you think about that technology in its base form, while certainly advancements have been made, and we're at 5G now with broadband capabilities, the idea of connecting the SIM to the tower didn't evolve all that much. The devices definitely evolved. Clearly, we noticed that we're still relying on them now, but the technology didn't at all. And where Mobius came along was what we now call phone 3.0, which is eliminating the SIM and through software only producing a carrier-grade call and text experience. So at Mobius, we create a product called MultiLine. And MultiLine allows the user to put a second dedicated business number on any smartphone, tablet, or laptop without the use of a SIM. We do it solely through SaaS. And what's different from us and everyone else is our proprietary technology is not your run-of-the-mill VoIP call. This is a true carrier-grade call with software only. So that alone is pretty cool, right, Mischa? I mean, just the fact that we could do that, but we definitely took it a few steps further. We realized, hey, wait a second, we could use this to help highly regulated industries capture texts and calls to remain compliant. For instance, financial services, you can't just go willy-nilly as a broker texting your clients, hey, sell all your Apple stock today. Like that is a huge off-channel violation of SEC policy. So with MultiLine, most of today's largest tier one banks around the globe are using our product. And that's to capture those calls and texts, remain compliant, and avoid the hundreds of millions of dollars in SEC violations that you see being handed out all the time now. So that worked well. We also took it into other highly regulated industries like healthcare and pharmaceutical, and some of the categories that aren't necessarily regulated, but you're looking to reduce or mitigate legal exposure, like education. Teachers, giving out their cell phone number to students and parents and administrators, and never being able to track what's being said or anything. We've become very popular with K through 12 public school districts throughout the country, and most recently, trucking and logistics. So we think about all the truckers out there that need a way to be able to communicate seamlessly with their dispatch units, repairs, being able to log certain items that are also under regulation, hours of operation, things like that. So that's been something new for us lately, but really catching fire. And the last part of what we do is integrate seamlessly into all of the social platforms that you probably like to use all the time, like WhatsApp and, could be WeChat, Microsoft Teams integration. So you stay in your workflow. So we've really taken it and created what we would consider a purpose-built omni-channel communication platform from what was once just a simple app. So that's what we do.
Oh my gosh. This is kind of a geeky, dorky question, but I like the SIM to tower. I've never heard it explained that way. Phone 2.0 is SIM to tower, from the landline to SIM to tower. What a
Yeah,
way to.
exactly. Before you needed a bunch of cable running underground or overhead, and then wireless did away with that. And what we've done is just basically circumvented the SIM, allowing you to be able to do more with the phone you have.
So to circumvent the SIM, I mean, this is probably duh, but you need a phone or something that has a SIM so you can piggyback off of that. Am I
That's
saying that right? So you've got to have some sort of connectivity over and above hotspots. You know,
that's correct. But the beauty of MultiLine is we don't care who your connectivity is with, because the MultiLine number will only ride on the back of that native SIM number to allow connectivity. It also won't communicate with the native SIM. So any concern someone has about, hey, is this in some way listening to my personal calls, or does it know? No, actually, we built it purposely not to do that. So there's no interaction between your native SIM that might be on AT&T and your MultiLine number that will ultimately ride on the T network. So that's a good, I get asked that question a lot, and I usually shoot it out of the sky right away, because that was from the beginning. We wanted to make sure that there was never an issue with that.
yeah, that's cool. So it's almost just like if you think of the SIM as a pipe or a channel, a connection, you're just literally laying another pipe right on top of it, and there's no
Exactly.
interference, shall we say.
Exactly.
That's cool. So you're going into finance. I saw healthcare as well. And you meet all the HIPAA rules, or probably help support the HIPAA rules.
We do.
That's all the HIPAA, for anyone that doesn't know what that is. That's the federal regulations on sharing your healthcare clients' information.
Yeah, that's the poster you see at the doctor's office or the hospital. It basically tells you your rights to privacy as a patient. And that's making sure that all of that patient information remains confidential. And, in the case of communications, one of the beauties of our platform is we can set up automatic redaction, so that if any of that stuff is accidentally text from healthcare provider to patient, it will be redacted automatically and just be held in the cloud, so that it never even reaches its final destination.
Oh, cool. That's amazing. Um, how long has Mobius been in existence as it currently is?
Yeah, when you look at Mobius from, with new eyes, if you were to go to our website, mobius.ai, we would look like a scrappy late stage startup. And that's essentially how we operate on a daily basis. Company has been around for about 20 years, but has really pivoted a number of times to meet new technological needs. And the phase we're in now, I would tell you, is absolutely the most exciting phase the company's ever been in.
Is that just because of the growth potential, the demand, the need for that second line?
Yeah,
Or
I think it's because we found something that solves for a number of different industry categories in different ways. I just told you everything that our multi-line product does, but it does them very differently depending on what industry you're looking at, and does some more for financial services, some more for logistics and trucking. But the beauty of it is it's solving for them at scale. And I think that's the difference of the period we're at now. It's just a rocket ship.
mm, so it's easy for UBS to try it in one office, and if it works, just blast it out across the whole UBS network. For example, I saw
That's right.
UBS was a customer, right?
Absolutely, Misha. And what we're finding is I've not ever seen anyone try our product and not end up buying it. So we will typically do a brief proof of concept phase with, maybe a department or two, maybe 20 or 30 lines for a week or so. And it becomes quickly apparent how easy it is to onboard with multi-line. And then you see the value right away. And I mean, just the cost savings alone, sometimes when you figure out if you didn't have to buy 10,000 iPhones a year, of which you might only get 30% of them back when those employees leave, which is a pretty accurate stat. You understand a few different things here, like, wow, I'm saving enormous amounts of money in hardware cost. And if you're of the digital conservationist minded type, you also realize you're probably avoiding thousands of phones ending up in landfills, which is where most of them go, even the ones that you think may be being recycled.
Yes, the the tired iPhone 12 with the cracked screen and slightly warped is not getting refurbished. It is going
Exactly.
into the landfill. I just had the aha moment, or I made the connection that what you're doing is you're allowing the workforce to use their own phone, and you're putting you're piggybacking the work phone on top of their device. Or is that, am I saying that right?
You're absolutely right, Misha. Yeah, we call it BYOD, or bring your own device is the term for it, and it allows you not to have to go and buy that hardware. And we've even made the user interface almost exactly like the native interface on your phone, whether you're using an Android device or an iPhone, so that there's no learning curve. Once you put the app on your phone, the only difference is with a work number, a work call comes through, it'll say multi-line call, and the contact's name if the contact's in your phone or in your enterprise contacts. Other than that, it works just like your phone would.
That is awesome. So you are saving on hardware costs, you're saving on the SIM connections as well. Obviously, you're going to have your monthly bill that goes to the client, but I'm guessing there's some sort of arbitrage there, or some difference between if the landline typically costs for a business line, for a business SIM connection, uh, costs 40, you're able to go lower than that. Yeah, or
Yeah, you're pretty close there. I mean, we're typically able to save you about half off of traditional wireless service. And we have different levels of multi-line service depending on what your needs are. Some people are only interested in having a second line for talk and text. They don't need to archive calls, or they don't need to attach things like WhatsApp capabilities or Microsoft Teams capabilities. So we've got three tiers of service depending on what the needs are. And small business usually will opt for the base version. But
okay.
absolutely, we're able to save you typically at least 50% off traditional wireless service.
I love it. So you're like, hey, small business, you just want to be able to onboard people, get them a business line, and we don't need data warehouse all the sensitive information, right? We just
Correct.
want to be able to onboard you, get you a phone line easily without having to buy you a device or set up a new line with AT&T or Pac Bell or SBC or whoever they are these days. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And being carrier agnostic is important for us, because if your company happens to be a long time AT&T, if they've been on one carrier forever and don't want to switch carriers, it doesn't really matter to us. We can provide the service no matter who your native carrier is.
It's amazing. Um, in the financial services industry, I'm sure they love the cost savings, but is the main benefit to them the ability to track and document all calls, texts, all sorts of things? And then they're like, oh yeah, well we get to save money at the same time, or
It's interesting when if we were to go back in time 2 years ago or so, when literally every day I opened up the paper and some large global bank was getting a fine for off-channel communications. It was all about that. And we, right place, right time with the right product for us, certainly. But as time's gone on and the economy goes up and down as it will do, cost savings will come in and out as a real driver for this. And I'm seeing it again quite a bit. We're seeing it all over the world. So, I don't think one thing I've learned is it doesn't matter how large the company is, being able to trim expenses is always going to be at the forefront for us, for all of them. Um, so, we fit right into that mold.
so did you start I mean, some people start direct to consumer, and then they bring their service up the to small to medium sized businesses, then to enterprise, etc. Did you has your company done the reverse? You started enterprise targeting Fortune 500 companies, and then you've slowly worked down the chain, and now you're like, all right, we've got this refined, we've got our systems in place, we can not only handle I'm assuming it's a higher margin just due to volume for, somebody like UBS, for example. But now you're able to say, hey, small to mid-sized business or small business, and I don't know, is that 5 to 10 up to 300 employees? You're able to do that now efficiently. And is that how that flow goes? Or
Yeah, yeah. We've been working top down. So for us, our sweet spot was initially enterprise, which in our world is everything over 1,000 lines, essentially. 1,000 lines of business or 1,000 end users within a company. Um, and then we worked our way down to mid market, and typically in telco, mid market is 500 to 1,000 lines, and small business is everything under that. What we're seeing is small business really embracing this for a number of reasons. I'll take the most basic one. If you could be a landscape contractor with 5 or 6 field managers, say, right? And the idea of walking into a wireless store and saying, "Hey, I'd like to start a business account for me and my 5 managers," um, and they would be happy to set you up. And then when you realize, like, out the door with new iPhones, you're probably going to be writing a check for $5,000 at least before you walk out the door with working devices. And when we can eliminate the need for a device and give them that same cost for a fraction of the price, I mean, if you think of it, for a landscape contractor, $5,000 might be a couple weeks revenue or a month's revenue for that matter.
mm,
So think about how that translates to the single owner operator blacksmith, or not blacksmith, locksmith rather, or nail salon operator, where really he or she just wants them to know that somebody can have a business line, and that their cell phone, their personal cell phone number is not the number someone's going to call if they want to schedule an appointment for a haircut.
yeah, I'm just thinking too, I've done started various enterprises myself over my lifetime. And at one point had to deal with, Cox and AT&T and T and setting up all that stuff. And it's just a nightmare time wise too. I'm just thinking, my guess is your solution, Mr. Landscaper walks in and is like, yeah, sign up online and just how many lines do you want? Input their phone number, kind of a thing, versus needing to go through this whole freaking nightmare sales process with a telco.
Yeah, so that is the next phase of our evolution, is a more self-service onboarding, but still always with a tier one wireless carrier partner. That's really where the power of what we do comes into place. Is when you combine, they're like, think of the oil in our engine, but it's the best oil you can possibly find. Um, we want to make sure that call quality and text experience is first class, and to do that, we'll always be working with carriers.
Any tension between you and the carriers?
No, it's funny. A lot of us have, almost all of us have worked for a carrier before. So we've been on both sides of the fence and we understand the struggles and of both sides and the importance of partnership. So I can tell you, we've been very fortunate with that. The team at Mobius really is inside the heads of the partner, and I would say vice versa.
Are they are the telcos, or I don't mean to say telco. What did you call them? You had a much better way to say it.
Oh, I call them wireless carriers.
Yeah, the wireless carriers.
Yeah.
I worked for SBC Pac Bell back in out of Oakland, California in the I think it was it was like 2000 and 2000 through the .com bubble. I was reselling. It was horrible actually. I was working for SBC Pac Bell, reselling VPN services due to the regulations at the time. Pac Bell, I think it was SBC, couldn't sell their own VPN services because the rules were so convoluted. So we were reselling, I believe it was called COVID, which is ironic now since we all went through COVID, but this COVID VPN service, it was horrible. And the service was so bad that I actually sold negative at my time at SBC Pac Bell because I got handed a territory and everybody was canceling their deals, canceling their subscriptions. But whatever. Where was I going to go with that? I'm just thinking the wireless carriers, they don't see it as hey, we're losing out on more sim sales, and but maybe you're helping them lock in the service, the subscribers they have, or how
Yeah.
I'm
So,
just
so the way Wall Street typically will gauge performance for all the carriers is the amount of voice ads, they call them, new voice lines that are added to their system. So MultiLine counts as a voice line for all of our carrier partners. So they're happy to have it on there. In fact, in some cases, in many cases, it would save a deal that a company might not otherwise be able to afford if they were to go traditional and buy new devices, which we would call corporate label devices. So this gives them a wonderful option. And the carriers love it again because it counts for a voice ad or a gross ad in their overall revenue scheme.
It's cool. So Wall Street loves it, and ultimately, though, those wireless carriers, that's what it's all about. I mean, serving the customer, of course, but if you can look good on Wall Street, you are very excited.
Absolutely.
So I gotta say, how long have you been working for Movius?
So I've been with Mobius about 2 years now. And it was a really interesting time I came aboard. I would call it a significant brand inflection because it was around the same time that T-Mobile acquired Sprint, and Mobius was previously a Sprint legacy solution. So when we brought it to T-Mobile, it amplified the our audience significantly because as of now, T-Mobile is the largest mobile carrier in the world. So perfect partner to be with. And as they expand their business, their T-Mobile for Business unit, we couldn't ask for a better partner here in the US.
It was a Sprint legacy solution. Is that what I heard you say? So
Correct.
Sprint developed the technology and then spun it off, or
We developed the technology for Sprint. They were our initial carrier partner, and then T-Mobile acquired Sprint.
oh, okay, okay. Well, I'm just thinking. I don't mean to frame it this way, but as far as an easy sell goes, or an easy sale, I mean, I'm not sure what the downside is for a customer, but I'm imagining you're having a lot of fun right now.
Oh, it's been a blast. I got to tell you, I think what I'm finding most satisfying is when we discover we can solve for an industry category that I didn't even think of before. And sometimes that happens like, hey, I wonder if, and sometimes the wonder if comes to us. So either way, it's magic. And sometimes it's a little bit of a combination of both. But what I really love is meeting new industry. Well, I can tell you, for instance, I've been meeting with trucking companies, independent operator truckers within just the last month or so, and finding out about their lives and how they communicate with one another and their dispatcher and what they like about wireless service and what they don't and what they wish they could have. And when I talk to them, I find, oh, that's how they use their communication devices. And every industry is a little bit different. And when I find one that I think we can really solve for, I get so excited because it's one of those things I was like, hey, wait a second. 2 years ago, this was never even on our radar.
That's so interesting. I have another question for you, and I don't know if it's appropriate, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Do you pay like a piggyback fee to the wireless carriers?
Well, it's definitely a revenue share piece.
Okay.
We deliver it as one service. As a matter of fact, with T-Mobile, we white label our service. It's T-Mobile MultiLine powered by Mobius. It's not like that in every country, but here in the U.S., we do it that way. Um, yeah, certainly we go into the revenue portion of that as a partner with all of our carriers.
I love it. I'm just saying how it's win-win-win for everybody now. That was more of my question, not to get super granular, but to be like, oh, the pieces are falling into place for me, right? I'm like, oh, you've got this amazing service that solves a lot of problems for for businesses big to small. Um, some of which are, hey, easy to onboard new people, get them new phone numbers at the minimum. That was the tier one or tier three. Maybe you had three tiers. I can't remember. Is that tier three? Then tier two is what, some sort of data protection, and tier three is
Yeah, typically tier two is the ability to be able to interface with social messaging platforms, and then tier three can be also archiving calls and texts into a cloud server of our customer's choice. We don't hold on to any of the data. Typically, certainly all of our larger customers have very they've got longstanding relationships with archival platforms and cloud service companies. So we work with their archival system of choice.
yeah. Okay. And I see how now it just makes sense. So I my experience with the telcos and the regulations, wireless carriers, not so much with wireless carriers. I guess back in 20 years ago, wireless was just making the big push, or some version of the big push, but just it's so regulated, like trying to move the Titanic, And so I see now that the carriers, wireless carriers, love you because you you can scale up these added services easily for them, and then they can and share in the revenue. It's win-win-win for everybody. Again, I'm just seeing that, so I appreciate that.
Exactly. And most
Thank you.
importantly, always giving them an ability to solve for one of their clients or prospects issues that they previously didn't have a solution for. We become that solution.
Amazing. Uh, who bought Sprint? Sorry, my brain is gapped for a
Oh,
second. T-Mobile.
T-Mobile acquired Sprint, so
Yes.
we became T-Mobile MultiLine, and they
Yes.
are our exclusive partner here in the U.S.
So T-Mobile, well, oftentimes they'll come to you guys and say, "Hey, we've got a significant. This is a problem we're dealing with. Can you guys solve this?" And you're getting those kinds of interactions, yeah.
Yeah, it goes both. It goes. There's two ways that happens. One is what you just described. It's we have our own internal sales team. They have their many thousands of sellers out there in the world, and they'll come to us and go, "Hey, so and so bank or so and so healthcare system. We think there's a good fit here for MultiLine. Let's work together to close this deal." And then we'll meet with the customers together, and that's great. And then the other way is my team is active in lead generation as well. So we'll constantly be targeting those industries with outbound communication that we think we can solve for. A lead will come to us. I like them. Listen, I like them both. I do put a lot of emphasis on the ones that we generate because those people have a need specifically for what you sell, right? So they've said, "Hey, what you do is what I need." So that excites me because I consider that certainly the gold standard of warm leads.
We love warm leads.
Yes.
So, oh man, I have so many questions that are popping into my brain right now. I'm I'm thinking of again my old Pac Bell SBC days where I was frontline sales guy, so I'm prospecting, networking, telemarketing, doing all this stuff, and then I would promise the world, and then they'd bring in the sales engineer meeting too to sort of, you know, clean up the mess and be like, well, this is what really can be done. Let's close this deal, and here's how we can actually help you. I'm imagining that's the same with you. You're like the big sales engineer. People are you're being brought in sort of conversation two, three, four, something like that.
Yeah,
Is that
sometimes one and two. It's never really the same. Sometimes I'll start the conversation with either a partner or with our internal sales team, because I usually have first sight at what's inbound when somebody has a need of our service. So I'll help sales determine who's probably the best person on the team to talk to this particular prospect, or even the partner. I'll say, hey, T-Mobile, or hey, BT in the UK. Um, we've got a great a great call today from a hospital system, and I think it would be great for Sandra to work on this project with us. So I often have first touch, but I'm involved in almost all of them in some capacity.
Yeah. So on the trucking side of things, you're developing this market right now, if that's a right way to say that. And are you having conversations, obviously, like is it the CEO, or is it like who are you talking to mostly? And it sounded to me like you said you might even talk to the trucker themselves, or who are you personally having conversations with in
Yeah,
that
this is
hierarchy? Yeah.
so going almost back to the top of our conversation. This is one of the really fun things is, depending on the industry category, I'm talking to radically different types of people. So for instance, in banking, it's often, a chief information security officer, or a CTO, or quite often a chief compliance officer, right? Because that's where they've come to get us. With a trucking company with a fleet of 100 or 200 trucks, you may be talking directly on call one with the CEO, the owner of the company, somebody who might have started with 5 trucks 20 years ago and like built their own business, or their procurement person, or if they have an IT person, that, a director of IT. But in many cases, that's a much more frictionless sale. And the reason for that is there's just fewer departments to talk to. I mean, you understand, like if you were working with a giant bank, how many fiefdoms there are globally that you need to interface with. That can take a long time, and you're going to talk to a number of different groups, not just people, but groups of people. Um, and then same thing with other highly regulated industries. You're typically going to talk to many different people. It could start with with an IT decision maker. It could go to legal. It's going to go to legal anyway at some point. So, and but some of these industries like trucking or education, much shorter food chain. It's really interesting, and I love those conversations because you really get a sense like, oh, the people that I'm talking to in this room, these 4 people, these will probably be the 4 people we'll know forever.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, I was mostly, I thrived myself best in the shorter sales cycle type of sales. I was in sales for 25 years or whatever it is, and so it's the shorter sales cycle stuff. I did not have the capacity to nurture the relationship and have the patience for multi departments. I could see it in finance. You're trying to save them money, so you're talking to the CFO, and then you got the people who are worried about legal, and all those departments that you said, and then ultimately you're stepping on somebody's toes, and somebody knows somebody, and I imagine it's just it can be pretty, if the I imagine those can be sticky deals. Yeah.
It can be a long haul, and there's a lot of people to win over along the way.
Yeah, so it's probably fun as you go into like you're saying, different industries and verticals and things like that, perhaps have lots of wins. Maybe that's a good way to say it too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Lots of wins and also just different personality types. I like the fact that we can interface with so many different types of people.
Yeah, it's cool. Um, so as you are going down the hierarchy, are you building out more sales teams for like small right now? Is that an agenda to build out, sales teams to deal with small businesses, for example?
Yeah, and we do have a great SMB team right now. They also handle mid market, so we break it into two teams. In we have a U.S. team and an international team, but within those teams, there's an enterprise team and mid market SMB team.
Yeah. Let's focus on small businesses for a little bit. Tell me, I mean, you painted the picture fairly well for the, the nail salon old owner or the landscaper, but like what's exciting about Mobius to them? I mean,
A lot of it is making their lives more efficient, simple, and less expensive. Almost in that order. So by efficient, I mean, again, if I'm a small business owner, I mean, I'll take the guy who mows my lawn, right? He's got 5 trucks out there in the field. MultiLine's perfect for him because he was giving people like his phone was just always ringing, right? His own personal number. It could be his mother 1 minute and like 4 ladies down the block who want their hedges cut the next minute. And imagine that. That can be super nerve wracking. And with MultiLine on his phone and his manager's phones, now they've got this distinct separation between work and personal. And with MultiLine, you can even set up times when you want. You can set up office hours. So I'm only going to this phone's only going to take calls between X and X times of the day. Other than that, it's going to go to voicemail, which of course is dedicated voicemail with MultiLine. So you can have, your unique business voicemail on that line while people calling. Well, when your Aunt Sally calls, she's going to get your personal number. So that is in its most basic form for small business been a big win where we can solve for somebody, just giving them that level of comfort and sanity of knowing that they've separated their work and their personal lives.
it's great. As far as a small business person is concerned, operator, perhaps we call them, what's the main thing? I'm imagining a couple of frustrations. One, they might go, "Hey, this sounds great," but the actual implementation of it's got to be harder than you say it is. And do I want to learn a new technology, a new thing? Is that like speak to that?
I think that's an ongoing thing we've mastered and continue to improve upon, right? So what you just said is really is I see a lot small business owners first, they're going to think about how much does this cost and is it going to be difficult to use? And is it going to be difficult to teach my people and manage the process, right? Because I have no time, right? If the guy that mows my lawn is only one of 5 trucks out there, but he's always out there. Like, I don't know when that guy sends bills or does anything, but it, very busy is my point. So no time to teach his people advanced IT. We've made the onboarding process really, really simple. It's as simple as downloading an app from the App Store and having it up and running. There's an admin portal for whoever you've assigned to manage the process. And in that admin portal, you can assign the number. And one of the beautiful things is Mischa, just like your email address is owned by your employer, you, the employer, own that number. So when somebody from one of his crews leaves and goes to work for another landscaper, the number stays with him and he just assigns it to the next employee. Why is that important? Not only for small business, but for enterprise. Think about this. Think about financial, like an investment advisor or a broker with a giant book of business, right? Yeah. And that person leaves, he may have 5 jobs throughout his career and he's going from, just going to the next job. Wouldn't you like all of those contacts and all of that data that was accumulated during the time you paid that person to stay with you as the employer? Do you think the answer for everyone is yes, no matter how large the enterprise is, right? So this is great for field sales reps because all of that information remains with the employer, and especially the number. So I get, I think about back when I worked for T-Mobile for 6 years, right? And we had one number. It was our T-Mobile number. It was the number I used for personal. It was the number I used for business. A month ago, somebody called me on that number looking for me. Hey, you're with T-Mobile still, right? Because I want to talk to you about this thing. I'm like, no, I haven't been there since 2016. But hey, thanks for remembering me. And and I'll connect you with who you should be talking to. But I'm pretty sure that T-Mobile would have loved that number to go to whoever replaced me when I left the company.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, by the way, have you heard about Movius?
Don't trust me. That happened.
Hey, how much revenue are you responsible for?
Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, everything that flows through the company, I have a hand in, as far as think, let me put it into this perspective. Marketing at Mobius works through three different pillars, right? Number one is the brand. Anything to do with the brand you see visually, what the brand means, falls into my world. And when I say that, I mean, I help activate it, but certainly the leadership team and all of the employees have something to do with that as well. But culture, both, customer facing and inward, that's the first pillar, because without brand, nothing happens. You can't go anywhere without brand. I'd say the second pillar is really lead generation, making sure that those industry categories we discussed know what we offer and how we can solve for their unique problems, and generating as many leads for the sales team and keeping that pipeline full. That's number two. And number three is really managing and supporting our partners' sales force and our internal sales force. And that's with sales enablement materials, making sure that they have access to them, making sure that we get their feedback on what needs to be updated and modified, what's resonating, what's not, all of that. So when you frame it like that, I suppose we do have, we're involved in every aspect of revenue within the company.
Mm. So, well, I'm wanting to give an audience a picture of perhaps you can give us a general idea of subscribers you have or users or company revenue. I'm not sure if you're private or public, so maybe that's public domain anyway. I can look it up, but I'm really just want people to know that, hey, you're responsible for quite a thing, and you've got skills. And uh, because I want to ask you a few questions, but I want to frame it with like you
I'll
know what I
set
mean?
some with help. I'll set some guardrails. So Mobius is a privately held company, so that certainly there's not a lot I can talk about regarding things like revenue and subscribers, numbers, and even to some degree who our customers are. But I would tell you this: the top 20 global banks in the largest banks in the world are using MultiLine currently. So if that helps you, kind of frame where we're at right now in the growth trajectory. I don't know. I mean, again, there's only so much I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, I think I I guess I'm looking at I forgot to say this at the beginning, but anybody listening, watching, go to Movius.com, excuse me, Movius.ai, 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 and you can see more about what we're talking about here, John and I, and then there's a video too. You gave me a video link. I'll put it in the show notes, but part of it when you guys talk about who you're helping in the financial services, I mean, it's the who's who. It's like, well, we can start with BlackRock, which I think is the number one assets under management, I think, at this point, something like that. We've got UBS, Chase, and then we've got, yeah, all the global banks, Deutsche Bank, on down the line. So I guess my question is, I just thought maybe we would pivot to, where do you see, gosh, I'm thinking, well, this is what I'm thinking. You are engaged with the pulse of the economy on one hand, right? Because you are dealing with companies, you are aware of what's happening with companies big and small, all the way from the biggest institutions down to, you know, to small shops. And I'm thinking, so wow, what a great opportunity to get some recon. Like, where do you see the economy going right now? What's your feel for what's going on out there? Like, give me, what conversations are you having about that?
Yeah, here's some you raised some really interesting points there. There's some things that I'm seeing in the economy, particularly in the regulatory space, that are very exciting. I mean, exciting for me, probably less exciting for the financial services institutions. One thing in particular is a ruling went into place a couple months back where effective January 1st next year, all hedge funds will be treated with the same regulatory compliance measures as all banks, which they were exempt from largely for a very long time, which opens up an entirely new segment for us to really talk to, because those folks are looking for solutions now so that they're not caught with their pants down when the new year starts. So it's opened up enormous amounts of conversations for us here at Mobius in the hedge fund space. So I'm seeing that happen a lot. The other thing I'm seeing happen is we talked about it earlier is the pivot to cost savings, no matter how large your business is being able to figure out new ways to trim expenses. And that's those two things I think are where I'm seeing that industry pointing towards.
Mhm. It's interesting, I suppose, as the money supply is tightened up a little bit, or the free money, however you want to say it, the Feds raised rates, or maybe they're just following and rates are going up, and however you want to say that. But definitely there's those cycles of where everybody's buying, and you don't need to be as aware of your expenses, perhaps, as a company. Not that we all shouldn't be aware, but it's like, let's capture growth while it's there. Now the dust is settling, and so it's like, oh, we gotta start looking at the balance sheet, right, or the income statement, I suppose. So you're seeing a lot more of that right now. Is that in effect what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely. And you nailed it. It's cyclical. Like there are times when I think that people don't really think much about that because, hey, we're making so much money, with taking maybe folks will take their eye off the ball a little bit on the cost savings. And while it'll always be there, it may not be the big message. And then suddenly 6, 8 months, 10 months later, that can be completely flipped depending on where the economy's headed.
So as far as the hedge fund regulation, are we looking at perhaps a reckoning in that space where, as hedge funds are starting to be regulated like the rest of the industry, there's gonna be fallout, not due to bad behavior, but just not being able to meet those regulations? Or does that
I
question make
think,
sense?
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Here, I get asked that a lot. I think what we're seeing is, listen, that I mean, Sarbanes-Oxley kind of set the tone. Nothing's much as like those regulations have not changed much over the years. So what's changed? I can tell you the regulators have changed for what they're actually doing their jobs in the last, 2 years. They're now, I think there's government scrutiny and pressure for them to actually crack down. Um, that's mostly what I'm seeing is the regulations haven't changed. What's changed is the regulators.
Interesting. Is that due to more time availability, more resources put that way? I guess you said it too, political pressure, or pressure from.
I think mostly the latter. I
Yeah,
think we're in a climate now where no one wants to see what happened in 2008, 2010 um, happen again.
yeah.
And, you know, enough people that said, hey, how come these smaller organizations aren't being scrutinized to the level the larger ones are? There's certainly more of them.
Mm. Do you, let's see, you're dealing with, um, well, I'm curious your opinion on the commercial real estate market, because seems to be some tension over there that's brought up or not brought up. And I'm betting collaterally you're hearing or involved in that somehow. Yeah, go ahead.
Um, we're involved a little bit from the financial end of it, the operational end, not so much. I mean, definitely not my area of expertise, but I can tell you what I'm seeing certainly is the cost to flip all of that commercial real estate to residential is so cost prohibitive that they're just sitting on these properties indefinitely, and it's a waiting game. I'm seeing that in every city I'm in. A lot of empty buildings, and when I talk to people, they're like, "Yeah, well, look, to flip this building and make it profitable is 5 year, $200 million program. We can sit on it for a while and wait and see how things go." Now, eventually, maybe things will change, but I think you've got a lot of time still for them to sit on these properties. Hey, we work still here. That's all you need to.
Right?
They keep,
Newman
they keep
making a
hanging
play.
in.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I think Newman's making a play for it again too, where he was. Yeah, that's incredible. Um, so you're traveling all around the world. I'm guessing India, Middle East, Europe, Ireland. Excuse me. Yes, or
Yeah, primarily UK, EU. We don't have a lot of activity in India. However, we have a significantly large office in India where we have a lot of our engineer staff is there. Asia as well. So yeah, I'm all over the place, and it comes in kind of bursts and flurries. So here back here in the Northeast U.S. for at least the next month or so.
yeah, we're the trucking hubs because you're spending a lot of time there now. It sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. Atlanta is a big trucking hub where our headquarters is for sure. So great for us to be able to talk with some of those folks there. Chicago is another big one. Of course, New York, New Jersey, and anywhere where there's a port where goods are coming in, there's always going to be a trucking hub. Philadelphia as well, where I reside now, is a significant trucking hub for the Northeast.
Mm. Um, I'd be remiss if we at least didn't just talk about AI for a second. So, you've got some sort of AI solution layered on, I'm sure, or where do you see all this going? Or get riff on AI for a little bit.
Yeah, listen, AI near and dear to my heart, and I think we employ it really well from a solution standpoint. So clearly, Mobius.ai, you got to figure we're involved in it some way. So, and I would say the first way we use AI is to be able to at scale monitor the data for the calls and texts that pass through our platform. So one thing we're always trying to do is make sure that we can optimize the service that we can provide. And the only way to do that is to know where the service is working really well and where there might be an issue. And what AI allows us to do is go through all those tickets that would come in. And when I say a ticket, I mean the data generated from any call or text that happens to be going on. And we're processing millions of calls. So that there's no way like people at a switchboard could be watching all that come in. You need to figure out a way to process that. And then be able to figure out, okay, well, there was a dropped call in this neighborhood or text didn't go through here. Why was that? What can we do to fix that? We employ AI for that. And that's something that I think puts us far ahead of our competitors, certainly. But here's something that really excites me in how we use AI. And I'll give you the brief story on this. We made some assumptions in the pharmaceutical space a couple of years ago that because pharma had sales teams out there in the field, that they would want to use MultiLine, much like the financial industry, to be able to make sure that they monitored those sales reps to healthcare provider communications and make sure there were no violations. And so we went to work in that space trying to do that. But when we put together focus groups with pharma executives, we found that really wasn't resonating like we thought it would. They were like, "Yeah, that's a pretty good thing, and I think we could use that." But hey, one thing we've been struggling with since COVID is clinical trials. There's no turnkey system for for remote clinical trials. We've tried a lot of different things. We've tried Zoom, but I mean, trying to get through all that data is very difficult. So clinical trials essentially are, if you were the patient and I was the trial clinician, if you were the subject, you would come into an office and I would ask you a bunch of questions and, I'd look at your arm and see if it was, had a rash on it from the cream. And you might be there for a couple hours answering my questions, and I might do that all day long with other trial clinicians. Well, think about how you're doing that now remote when no one wants to come into an office during COVID, and out of COVID, only half the people want to come back to an office. The world has changed. There's so many things we're not going back to. So we created an AI product that marries well with our MultiLine product, and that's called Claire. And Claire is a two-way call sentiment analyzer that doesn't just capture the calls. It can read both the inflection, the tone, the emotion of both sides of the call, then analyze that data at scale and be able to give you the results of your trial in real time. And why is this important? Because when clinical trials fall behind schedule, it can cost $1 million a day in lost revenue when that happens. Because a drug, when you come up with a medical device or a new drug, there's typically a very long runway between R&D and release. But all of that's been scoped out for profitability from day one. And if we can help make sure that those maintain, first of all, first thing we want to do is make sure that patient advocacy is number one, right? We're capturing the right data so that whatever is produced is going to help the patient. And then secondarily, we want to keep those clinical trials on track and on time and on budget for our customers. So Claire helps to do that. When you have those conversations through MultiLine captured on Claire, that data gets completely run through at scale and implemented immediately into the trial process. So that excites me because now we're actually we're solving in the pharma space again for something we didn't even know was necessarily a need until we took the time to hear it right from the horse's mouth.
That's amazing. Do you build out a sales team specifically for the pharma industry now, or how does that?
Yep. Healthcare and pharma typically is the same sales team, but we have some folks from the pharma industry who've joined us, who also work on an advisory basis for us, so that now we can shortcut the whole process of the focus groups. We'll still do them, but also, hey, I want to make sure I can pressure check my messaging to make sure that am I speaking pharma? Because I don't come from that world. We can't possibly come from, I haven't driven a big rig ever too. So yeah, I rely on folks from the industry to help guide us.
This is interesting. This is kind of a complete side note, but I have a buddy, a very good friend. His name's James, but he helped bring, he's a clinical trials guy. He helped bring Botox to market back in the day. And who brought Botox to market? I'm trying to remember the company name. It's escaping me. But is that like, are you like, hey, that's a valuable conversation for me, John, to talk to a guy like James, or no, you've had enough conversations and you guys are
no, listen, there's never enough conversations.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I might just introduce you to for James. Anybody watching, listening, you got to see networking in real time.
That's it. In real time. I love it.
Where do you see, I guess, two interesting things? You are in the mobile space, obviously deeply embedded. All of us are. Anybody listening, watching has at least a phone or two or three or four and has a SIM card or an eSIM or is paying a mobile carrier. I mean, where do you see all this going? Like, give me a vision of the future.
I think you're going to see more or less reliance on SIMs, certainly, and more software. I think more software-based solutions integrated into what happens with wireless. I also think you're going to see more from a B2B standpoint. I think the tablet is going to certainly become a much more integrated part of what we do. Sir, if you've been to a hospital or the doctor's office, that entire industry is moving towards tablet-based technology for record keeping, for recording, conversations, for everything. So MultiLine does work with tablets, and we've been finding that that's a big piece of what we do as well. The industry in general, I think you're going to see, if you can imagine it being faster, but I think broadband wireless broadband is probably going to be where things really go and push. Moving data from point A to point B as fast as possible has really been the game now for quite a while. You're right. You nailed it. Everyone's got a phone. If you're 2 years old or 102, you probably have a phone, right? So how do we make things better? We make them faster, and we even potentially pull from other delivery methods like wire lines, back onto wireless. Yeah, I mean, you're seeing that happen all the time now. Fiber moving to wireless. If you watch the T-Mobile ads for their own broadband service, they're not the only ones doing this. Everyone's really getting on board.
I just had a vision of families of four or so signing up at Movius. Dad gets a line for all the kids. Right? There you go. Although I'm sure functionally, kids would be mad. You're like, you could easily be like, I'm taking your phone from you. Like legit, I am taking your phone number for good. I'll hit enter right here. Anyway, um, what was the oh, if you were going to start a business today, what would you do?
You know, I think we've just started scratching the surface of AI, right? I think one of the things that really excites me is how AI can help with this in the sustainability space. And particularly, I'm talking about sustainable agriculture in this case. That really excites me when I'm looking at how you can take AI and help an industry that's been here for thousands of years get better. And it's a little bit of a passion of mine as far as the food we serve most Americans, the rest of the world wouldn't even look at, wouldn't even touch. I spent a lot of time in Italy, and almost everything that we put in our mouths here in the US would be illegal to sell in Italy, France, or Germany. And they really have set the model for using technology to help everyday farmers produce better, more sustainable crops and keep the world looking and, just flourishing rather than destroying the planet. And I think if AI can help do that at scale here in the US, in Asia, in Russia, in countries that definitely have taken their eye off the ball from a sustainability standpoint, in lieu of mass production, and that's a good use of AI. So if I were to start something tomorrow, it would be in that world.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Do you see, I know thanks to TikTok and those sort of viral social media channels, maybe it's just the algorithm that I'm on, but do you see a turning point where I'm trying to think of a regulatory body or America changes in that regard, where we're like, okay, like let's start cleaning up our food system and everything, and like solving that problem, or are we still a long way away from that?
I I see it where we've slowed down destroying the earth here a little bit from an agricultural standpoint. Um, I think we've got decades to go to reverse what we've done. Mm. And if you look historically of how it happened, post World War II, we just had a lot of people to feed, and we wanted to feed them fast and easy, and suddenly there were TV dinners. You know, in a world where there certainly was no TV dinner 10 years before that. And it really just snowballed from there. So, certainly we're a much better educated country when it comes to what we put in our mouths now. And that dictates what we grow and how we treat the earth here. But we do have a long way to go before that gets better.
Mm, mm. You know what? I appreciate that. I think that's a great place to end. John, I always like to ask this question. I'm going to hit stop. Inevitably, you go, oh, I wanted to touch on, or I had this thought, or is there anything that comes to mind before I hit stop here?
I like to leave a little nugget for new marketers out there. How's that?
Yeah.
My nugget would be, don't be afraid to take big swings. If you know that those swings are appropriate, and make sure that there's data to back them up. That's what's gonna separate your work and whatever brand you're working for from the competition, is that you took some giant swings. And even if it meant you took 10 swings and only hit 2 home runs, well, that's still pretty darn good.
I love that, John. That's fantastic. I'm going to hit stop and we'll say goodbye offline. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.